Hey guys, how's it going? In this video today, I want to get straight to it and I want to talk about how to build a sandwich recipe card that shows the cost of every ingredient that goes into this sandwich. Knowing the cost of your sandwich and how it relates to your gross profit and your profit dollars is essential to your profitability. So without further ado, let's get into it. We want to break down the cost of your sandwich. We're going to break down the cost of a basic sandwich, right? Let's start there. Basic sandwiches, and then we could talk about specialty sandwiches at the end, maybe just a few extra things that you may want to know when you're building these recipe cards. So we're going to build a card and I'm going to show you. If you don't know how to do this, this is essential, so get out your pen and paper and take some notes, okay? So let's get into it. From the top, we're going to go just to the basics. We're going to talk about bread cost, meat, cheese, then your condiments. Again, I wish I had this when I was starting. I didn't have it. So I had to do this myself for each of my sandwiches at my shop. Once you do it, it's gold because now you know what you're working with, right? Now you know how much every sandwich at your shop costs, all the ingredients that go into it, and you've dialed in on how much profit you're gonna make. So let's get into it here. Let's talk about bread. At my shop, it was 60 cents a roll. 60 cents a roll, so let's go with that example. Okay, we're gonna use examples from my shop, right? And then you're gonna go back to your shop, hopefully, and look at what your costs are, so you're gonna know exactly what your bills are. So 60 cents on that bread roll, right? Okay, let's go. We're gonna talk about turkey, right? How do you determine the cost for your sandwich if you're using turkey, right? Well, okay, this is where we're gonna have to do a little math, right? I'm gonna look at some notes I've got. I don't have it all memorized, right? So I'm gonna have to look at my menu card. So for the purpose of this video, we're going to say that that turkey is 8 pounds. Let's go with that. We're gonna go $5.69 per pound for an 8-pound turkey. So we want to calculate how much each one of these 8-pound turkeys cost, right? So again, it's just simple math, right? $5.69, multiply that by 8, and the total that we get is $45.52. And next you want to convert those pounds into ounces. So 8 pounds multiply 16 ounces. That gives you 128 ounces. Next, it's important and very specific to your shop. Depending on how many ounces you want to put on your sandwiches at your shop to determine your profitability, you're going to use kind of a standard. Most shops use anywhere from like 4 to 6 ounces. I used 5-ounce portions at my shop, right? So we're going to use that here to determine our cost for our sandwich. And the way we do that is we take the total ounces, 128 ounces, and we divide that by 5. That gives you 25.6 portions. 25.6 full sandwich portions. So let's ignore the 0.6, right? That's up to you. You can make yourself a little sandwich hitter for yourself, little snack because you're working so hard. So we have 25 full ounce or 25 full portions that turkey yields. So step 5, you want to go ahead and determine the cost per sandwich for that turkey. So you're going to take that total cost, which is $45.62, and you're going to divide it by the 25.6. You're going to use that 0.6 for this math problem here. So $45.62 divided by 25.6, and what that does is give you a cost of $1.78 per sandwich portion. I did want to go ahead and use roast beef as an example too. So just like we did with the turkey, we're going to do a little bit of math here, right? We're going to keep it standardized and the same. So 8-pound roast beef is what we're going to use. And what I found on average for a decent roast beef of quality was the average price was always about $7.79 per pound. So in this case, we're going to take 8 pounds, multiply it by $7.79, and we come up with $62.32. So again, we're going to do what we did with the turkey, right? We're going to determine how many ounces that 8-pound yields, and exactly the same, 8 pounds, multiply that by 16 ounces, you get 128 ounces. And if you recall, the next step is then you're going to standardize your portion, right? Whatever it is. We're using 5 ounces again. So we're going to take 128 ounces divided by 5 ounces for each sandwich, and that's going to deliver, again, 25.6 portions that I can use. So again, we want to take the total price that you paid for that roast beef, which is $62.32, and you simply divide it by your total portions, which is 25.6. We got to use that 0.6 just like we did with the turkey, right? And then we come up with $2.43 per roast beef portion for a sandwich. So you see, it's a little bit more expensive, a whole 65 cents more than the turkey, and that should be reflected in your menu card and your recipe bill. So next we want to determine the price of cheese. For this video purpose, we're going with cheddar cheese, right? Everyone's favorite, people love cheddar cheese, right? Just standard cheddar cheese. Normally for a 5-pound block, costs you on average about $14. So 5 pounds, we convert that to ounces, right? 5 pounds times 16 ounces, gonna give us 80 ounces. So again, just like we did with the deli meats, you're gonna wanna standardize what you want your cheese to look like on every sandwich. What do I mean by that? Meaning the thickness, right? And you determine that by weight. So you grab a weighing scale, put a wax paper down, and you wanna determine what weight you want. So you find a thickness setting on your slicer and you go for it. You start slicing. I found that 3/4 of an ounce was a good amount, and 2 slices, that gave us 1.5 ounces of cheese per sandwich. So you take that 80 ounces that we came up with and you divide that by 3/4, 0.75. In that case here, it gives us 106 slices. So each one of those 5-pound loaves of cheese should yield you about 106 slices if you're using 0.75, 3/4 of an ounce, weighing it on your scale and setting your slicer to the correct setting. So now you want to go ahead and find out how much each slice of cheese is going to cost that you're going to put on that sandwich, right? So you're going to take just the price that you paid, $14. You know that you get 106 slices out of it now, right? So $14, divide that by 106, and you get 0.13. That's 13 cents. 13 cents per slice. And you know, if you standardize it, you want 2 slices on your sandwich. So now you know exactly how much you're putting on every sandwich, and that's 26 cents. So you can update your card and you can know that for this cheddar cheese portion, 2 per sandwich, 26 cents. So next we got the spreads, right? Everyone's favorite spreads. In this case, we're gonna use Best Foods mayonnaise, right? Nice spread, everyone loves it, makes your sandwich taste good. If you use that other stuff, that bottom of the shelf stuff, not as good, it's gonna be cheaper, but again, customers are gonna know it. That's a whole different topic though. So we're gonna go with Best Foods mayonnaise, 1 gallon, usually costs you about $22 on average. Sure, sometimes you can find it on sale, a little less, $18 or so, especially around certain things like Memorial Day weekend and things. Always look out for those specials at your local store or from your distributor. And same for your mustard as well. So $22 for Best Foods mayonnaise, and you're going to divide that by the gallon. Now you're going to look at your measurements and you're going to see that that gallon that cost you $22 yields you about 256 tablespoons of mayonnaise, right? So you take that $22, divide it by 256 tablespoons, and then you come up with about 0.086, so about 8.5 cents per tablespoon. Okay, you're gonna want to standardize how much you put on your sandwich too, so you have to train this, right? Usually 1 tablespoon per side yields you the right amount, right? Teach your staff how to spread it evenly to the corners, not too thick, not too thin, right? This saves you so much money over the course of a day, month, year, etc., right? So 2 tablespoons per sandwich, 1 per side. And so for every sandwich, you're gonna have 2 tablespoons. And remember, they were 8.5 cents each. So now we're talking about 17 cents of mayonnaise per sandwich. Here comes the mustard. Mustard is gonna cost you about $9 for French's mustard. Again, a good, decent brand name that's recognizable, that people know. People are gonna ask you too, what kind of mayonnaise do you have? What kind of mustard do you have? So, you know, it's better when you hit them with a brand name rather than pull out something generic from the back. Like, you know, this one that just says mustard on it, yellow mustard. Well, people don't want to pay a premium price for that, right? And it all adds up in the flavor of your sandwiches, truth be told. So that's about $9 per container of French's mustard. So for that container of French's mustard that costs you $9, you're gonna serve this in teaspoon, because you don't put a lot. You know, 2 tablespoons like you did with the mayo is going to be too harsh and too strong. So standardize the portion and the measurement. We're going to use teaspoon, okay? You want 1 teaspoon, and it's just best when you spread it across the bottom, right? So that container is going to yield you about 617 teaspoons of mustard. And to determine the cost of that teaspoon, you simply take the $9 divided by 617 different teaspoons, and you're going to come up with 0.01 and change. So let's call it 2 cents per teaspoon that you're going to use. So there you go. You can go ahead and add that to your build as well, because you're going to, just like you had 2 tablespoons of mayonnaise, now you have 1 teaspoon of mustard, and this one's going to cost you 2 cents. Doesn't sound like much, but again, you're doing this on every sandwich all day, every day, so it adds up, and you're going to want to know so that your pricing is accurate. Shredded lettuce, here we go. So shredded lettuce comes in a bag. Usually it's a case, right? A case of shredded lettuce. You get 4 bags in there, so you got to determine like what you want to put on your sandwiches, right? Generally, in this case, we're going to go ahead and use a portion of a 1/2 cup. So much like we did with the other one, we want to determine how much that case of lettuce costs you. So a case of lettuce, usually about 20 pounds, and it costs about $16. So you want to determine the cost per pound, and simply you just take the $16 that you paid, divide that by the 20 pounds, and you're going to come up with 0.80, so 80 cents per pound, right? And in this case, we're going to go ahead and determine the cost per ounce. So let's just break that down. You've got $16 per 20-pound case. And so you divide that, 16 divided by 20 pounds, it's going to be 80 cents per pound. Then you're going to take that 80 cents and divide it by 16, and that's going to give you 5 cents per ounce. That you can train is about 1/2 cup. So using that measurement of what portion I used, which was approximately about 1/2 cup, right? 1/2 cup was the measurement. That gives you approximately 3 cents per lettuce serving. Okay, we want to do the same for the tomatoes, and the tomatoes are going to be 20-pound cases. Those are 48 tomatoes per case. I've listed here on the board, it's $25 cost, and you divide that by the 48 tomatoes that are in there. 52 cents for each tomato. I used about 30 on my slicer setting, and that usually gives me 10 usable slices. You can get a few more slices out of that tomato if you use a tomato core, right? You can find them just for a couple bucks at your supply store. Take out that core, and you're going to get a few extra slices out of that tomato. Really important, again, when we come up with the price per, or the cost per slice, that suddenly if you're getting another 4 or 6 slices out of your tomato, rather than throwing it away, it's beneficial, because if you don't remove the core and you kind of slice through it, you'll find that you have to throw away those first few pieces because they've got the core just wedged right in the middle, right? So if you've done it, you know what I'm talking about. But once you use that tomato core, everything's good. You're going to come up with a few extra slices, and it's going to benefit you greatly. So we want to determine that slice cost, and simply you're going to take that 52 cents that we came up with when we divided the $25 cost by the 48 tomatoes. Okay, and what you're going to see here is that you've got 52 cents per slice, and you divide that by those 10 slices that we found that we were yielded, right? So 52 cents divided by 10 slices comes up with a total of 5 cents per slice. For our sandwiches, we want 2 nice big pieces of tomato, so 2 of those. So you're going to have a cost of 10 cents to add to your build. Okay, guys, we're getting a little bit closer here. We got the red onions coming out. Red onions, right? So again, you want to determine the thickness on that, right? You don't want the thick guy like that, but you don't want the real thin, translucent ones either, right? Even if you go with the thinner ones, then you're gonna wanting to pile on a few more just to get that flavor in your sandwich, right? So you're gonna want to determine the thickness, so then you can determine how many onions to put on, right? So in this case, again, you're going to want to set that slicer and find out what's a good slicer setting for that onion, and then you're going to determine how many you want to put on your sandwich. So generally, these bags of onions come in, and they're about $20 per bag, gives you about 18 large red onions. But here's the kicker. If you know, when you pull them out, some of them are a little unusable, and you have to trim around them and peel them and everything. And what looks like a large onion like that suddenly is a small little golf ball, or can be, right? So you're going to average in there and see how much after you've peeled away those layers, get it on that slicer and start slicing away. Now you're going to be able to determine really how many slices of onions that you can yield per onion. So an average yield per onion is about 22 slices, okay? And that's gonna give you a cost of about 5 cents per onion. So a standard portion of onions that we're gonna use here for this purpose is 4, okay? You can put a little more if you want, but just make sure you get that cost onto your card. So 4 slices of onion at 0.055, it's gonna yield you 22 cents cost per onion portion that you're going to want to add to your recipe card. Dill pickle chips. How do we do this, right? Because they come in these big, massive gallons, right? So you've got big, massive gallon quantities. How do we do that? The key is to convert that massive bucket into pieces. So how do you do that? Every bucket's going to give you about 1,600 chips, and the bucket costs about $48, right? So we're simply going to take $48, divide that by 1,600 chips. And that $48 divided by 1,600 chips is gonna be about 3 cents per chip. How many are you putting on your sandwich? You need to determine. About 4 of those across the sandwich. At 3 cents each, you've got 12 cents to add to that card. So a quick example of how you can bleed out cash real quick is just look at this. You've got 12 cents cost on those dill pickle chips, right? So if you just double that because one of your staff members wants to be nice, check it out. Suddenly you've got an extra 12 cents added to that sandwich, which is an extra $24 a day if you're selling about 200 sandwiches a day, and let's hope that you do. So over a year, that mathin is 8,760 extra dollars that went out the door that you didn't account for. That's massive. That's massive loss just from doubling the pickle portion, right? So just for an example and illustration of how things can get a little out of hand when you're not watching it. Again, because normally it's not just one thing. If that person's putting extra pickles, then they're putting extra lettuce and extra tomatoes, and everything's extra, right? So some sandwiches are looking like this, like that one Scooby-Doo sandwich, right? And some are looking like these really skimpy ones, right? So we want to standardize that. Customers appreciate it too. If not, they're upset. Like, how come I come in? Sometimes my $13.99 gets me, this big banger, and then sometimes I get a little shrinky-dink sandwich. So really important because they won't say anything, or they might. In my case, they did, but they might say something, or they might not. And the quiet ones just go away. You wonder, like, how come I lost my customers, right? Something simple that one person was building a grand sandwich, person loved it, next few times they came back, they didn't get that grand sandwich, and then they left. All right, pepperoncinis, this is one that costs money, little extra money, and that's why some delis standardize it and sell it along with their sandwich as free topping, and some people charge extra. That's up to you what you want to do. Usually a bucket costs about $36, and you're gonna get about 900 pepperoncinis, sport pepper, banana peppers, whatever you want to call them. Get about 900 in each of these containers. So you're gonna take that $36 divided by 900, you get 4 cents each. Again, you want to standardize what's the portion, right? Let's go with, depending on the size, we're gonna go with 4. Let's go with 4. 4 pepperoncinis at 4 cents each, 16 cents added to that recipe card. All right, guys, I hope that made sense. We went through the basic condiments that you might have at your shop. So here we go. On the screen, I'm gonna flash here the total bills, right? And let's go through it, run through it. Your final recipe costs, breaking it down from the top. All things being the same, You got the bread, that's 60 cents. You've got the meat that differs. Turkey, $1.78, roast beef, $2.43. So next on the list, we've got the cheddar cheese, right? 2 slices at 13 cents each, 26 cents, right? And mayonnaise and mustard. So we got the mayonnaise, about 17 cents for that portion. Mustard, 2 cents per portion. Running it down through the rest, we've got shredded lettuce each, 3 cents, tomatoes, 10 cents, red onions, 22 cents, pickles, 12 cents, pepperoncinis, 16 cents. And all things being equal except for the meat, you'll see that the turkey is $3.46 per build, and the roast beef is $4.11 per build. And next here on the screen is your profitability. Real quick, turkey, roast beef, both being the same selling price, $13.99. Okay, we talked about the food cost. Turkey $3.46, roast beef $4.11, Gross profit on the turkey is $10.53. Roast beef, a little lower, $9.88 because of that food cost. So everything else is going to be the same as far as like gross profit percentage on the turkey is going to be higher than the roast beef at 75.3. Roast beef, a little lower, 70.3, and that's going to yield you food costs of 24.7 for that turkey and 29.4 for that roast beef. So the takeaway here is that everything has a cost at your shop, right? And your profitability is determined on that, right? And customer experience too. So it's up to us to train our staff to make sure that they know what they're building, so you can rest assured and sleep at night that, people aren't giving the shop away. At the end of the month, you go, oh, what happened to all my money? It went out the door. It went out the door, or ended up on the floor. The staff needs to know that everything has a cost associated with it. All right, so build that recipe card for sandwich for your basics, for your turkey, your ham, salami, cheese. It takes a little time, but it's well worth it. We have to do it. Otherwise, we don't know. We're just shooting blindly from the hips, right? We're hoping that, we make our targets at the end of the month. But we don't want to hope. We want to know. And for those specialty sandwiches, you want to do the same. If you're adding extra sauce, barbecue sauce, or bacon, or jalapenos, you want to do the same. You just want to break down the cost for these items per bacon slice, per jalapeno, per tablespoon of barbecue sauce. You do that, and then so for the specialty sandwich builds, that's how you come up with your total cost, right? That's why those end up being a little bit more expensive, right? Like maybe another $1 or $2 added on to the price. All right, guys, that's all I wanted to say. I hope that this was helpful for you. I hope this was helpful, something that you could take back to your shop, get cracking today. Take care. I'll talk to you later. Bye.